Chicago'nun soguk ruzgarlari, Jesse I daha de cert hail gatiri ordu. Kar yajasai yogunlasirkan, sokak lambalaranin altındaki golcular yüzeyip kisalayır, kadalerdeki sessizlik, zaman zaman gutsan siren sesleril bazalirdu. Serin en yoksel mahalelerinden bayrind, kukuk berbina karanlik sokakta tek basina parliyordu. Borasi, ev sizlera hizmet verin kukuk ber saglik klinijidi. Bu klinik kalisan ganalu Dr. Larden Bayri, sabaha kader nobit tutin Dr. Rebecca Edie. Bu gaze de burkok evzais osta, soguk nedenili jelasin salunum yolu infectionleri ve digger rahatsızla klarla klinij basramustu. Ankak en sakandis duadugu hastasi yasli buradamdi, Bay Thompson. Yillerdir sokaklarda yasayan bu adamin durumu kochulsiyordu. City berzatur jesamektidi ve ager heman thi berhastanai goturomets hayatakalmasi zordu.
What are your thoughts on the story? Don't forget to subscribe and like.
Ankak bayak ber soren vardi. Hastanelerin kogu, sigortasi almayan evzais insanlari kabul etmir ya de enazindan uzun shurkler sonakunda yatislarini sagliordu. Rebecca, telefonla burkok hastanii aramis ama hepsinden olumsuz yanit almisti. Sun care olarak sosyal media userinden yardım kagrisinda bulundu. Bu kagri, beklemedik ber si kilda Eric Trumpe ulasti. O sarada is sayahati isen Chicago'dati ve berbagis organizasyonuna katalmisti. Telefonundaki bildirimler gazatarkan, Rebeccanin umutsuz yardım istejani gordu. Isind garip ber his uyandi. Yardım etmasai gerektigini biliyordu. Gays urisi, hikta sunmadan arabasina atladai ve klinij dogru yola sikti. Oraya vardaginda, Rebecca saskanlikla Eric Trumpai capita gordu. Siz borada eni yapıyorsunuz, di sordu. Eric, hislika isari jurek yasli adamin duramunu gazdan jasurdi. Onu heman hastanai gotermamiz jerekir, dedi kararli ber cecil. Telefonunu sikarip de gruden ozel ber hastanii aradi. Kendi bagis fonu arasaligula tum masraflari karsaliakajani belurti. Hastain kabul eti. Burkak dakika isand ber ambulance geldi ve Bay Thompson. Directly tibi destigi alabalesajai ber hastanai goturuldu. Rebecca, gozleri dolu eriki bakti. Bu adamin hayatini kartardiniz, dedi. Eric basini iki yana saladi. System digestiromedics, binlers insan boil hayat mukadalisi vermi devam edisek, dedi Husenal. O anaklinda ber fikir dogdu. Chicago'daki buo laden sonra, Eric Trump bayak ber prajay juristi. Ev sizler isen ukretsiz saglik hizmetleri fonu. Bufan sesin sigortasis ve dusik jalurlayan sandler, hastanler ukretsiz tedavi gorbilsek, iliklarini alabilsek ve temel saglik hizmetlerinden faydalanabilisekti. İlkil isend binlers insan bu projedan yaralandi. Tedavi goran harasta, Eric Trumpin sidisper is insani almadigini. Ani zamanda toplam isen jersektan bersailer yapmak istian berhayersever oldugunu anlamisti. Bay Thompson ise tame men ilstiktiktan sonra, ganulu olarak saglik merkazind kalismaya basladi. Kendi jibi zor durumda olan insanlara yardım etmai kendine garev eden misti. O gundan sonra, Chicago'nun en cert kis jeslerin bile, ev sizlerin ve yardıma mutak insanların ber umudu vardi. Kunku berisi onların saglik hizmetin erasimanai sidai almisti. Vebu, sidis ber adamin victinila baslamisti. In the back streets of Los Angeles, in front of an old and dilapidated apartment building, a little boy was sitting. He was wearing a thin t-shirt and his feet were bare. He rubbed his hands together as he stared at the cold sidewalk, accustomed to the indifference of the people passing by. He was hungry, but this was nothing new. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. That night Eric Trump had come to Los Angeles to attend a major fundraiser. It was taking place at a luxury hotel, where business leaders were making million-dollar donations, expensive drinks in hand. But Eric's mind was elsewhere. Earlier, he had seen a post on social media with horrifying statistics about the hunger crisis in the poorer parts of the city. He decided then and there. For this event, he wasn't just going to donate, he was going to actually get out on the field. The next day, he took off his fancy suit and put on a simple coat. He took only a few bodyguards with him and set off for the neighborhoods where the aid organizations were concentrated. After a while, he walked through the door of a small charity organization, the Association for Children in Need. Inside, hundreds of people were waiting in line for a hot meal. Most of them were families with children. Their eyes were bright, but their stomachs were empty. The volunteers immediately recognized Eric, but he didn't want to attract attention. He quietly moved to the kitchen and began distributing food. As he was filling the plates in front of him, he noticed the little boy he had just seen in front of the apartment building waiting in line. She handed him his plate and he looked up at her. "Thank you," he said softly. Eric shook his head. "What's your name?" "Luis," the boy whispered. Luis lived here with his mother. His father had abandoned them and his mother worked several jobs, but it wasn't enough for the two of them. Most nights they slept hungry. As Eric listened to the boy's story, a great sadness came over him. There were hundreds, thousands of children like this. This was not a problem that could be solved with just one meal. Within a week, Eric started a major project to address the hunger crisis. His goal was to establish permanent food support centers for low-income families. Los Angeles was chosen as the first pilot site. A new system of kitchens, food stores, and free markets was developed. Families could come here and meet their basic needs, even if they had no money. The day the food bank opened, hundreds of families lined up at the door. Luis and his mother were there. When they walked in, they couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the space organized like a huge market. The shelves were full of milk, bread, fruit, vegetables, and many basic food products. And everything was free. When Luis saw Eric, he ran to him. "Did you do this?" he asked in amazement. Eric smiled. "We did it for all of us." From that day on, thousands of children were saved from starving. Eric Trump hadn't just donated money, he had built a system that could really change people's lives. And every time a new food bank opened, the smiles on the faces of children like Luis reminded him how valuable it was. Driving through the snow-covered streets of New York City, a black luxury SUV stopped in front of a charity organization. When the door opened, a young man in a suit got out. He took a quick look around, took a deep breath, and walked towards the building. There were dozens of children waiting for him inside. Some were shoeless, some were cold in their thin clothes. In their eyes, years of fatigue and a search for hope. This was Eric Trump. He had grown up in the shadow of his father, in the world of luxury business, but he had always been known for his sensitivity to people in need. Tonight, he had come here not to make an ordinary donation, but to make a new start by listening to a child's story. As his eyes scanned the surroundings, a little boy approached. He was about 9 years old, thin, with curly hair. His eyes were full of curiosity, but there was a bitterness in them. Shyly, he touched the edge of Eric's jacket. Eric bent down to eye level. "Hello, what's your name?" he asked in a warm voice. "Michael," the boy said softly. "Why did you come here?" Eric smiled. "To help you and your friends," he said. Michael bowed his head. "Really? No one will help us for long." That sentence stirred something inside Eric. How painful it was for a child not to believe in the sincerity of an adult. At that moment, he made up his mind. This was not going to be a one-time donation. He had to offer them a permanent solution. In the weeks that followed, Eric began to donate large sums of money to charity. But he knew that money alone was not enough. Shelters had to be built so the children could find a permanent home. Homeless children deserved not just a roof over their heads, but an environment where they could grow with love and education. An area in upstate New York was chosen for the first project. A children's center would be built with dormitories, educational spaces, and social activity centers. Construction began quickly. After weeks of work, the big day arrived. The center was opening its doors. That day, Michael and his friends moved into their new home. They had thick beds, clean clothes, hot food. But most importantly, they had someone who really cared about them. When Michael saw Eric, he ran to him excitedly and threw his arms around his neck. "Thank you," he said softly. Eric stroked his head. "Many people worked for you, not just me. But most importantly, you are no longer alone." Years later, Michael grew up, got an education, and started his own business. One day, Eric wrote a letter to Trump. "Thank you for giving me the family I have dreamed of all my life. Now I will help others." In that moment, Eric Trump realized how big an impact his work was having. Maybe he couldn't solve all the world's problems, but at least he had changed the lives of a few children. And that made it all worth it.